This is my 2016 Mercedes S550. I've driven this car since January of this year, so 10 months, and I've put 7,700 miles on it since then. But overall, I wanted to give you a summary of what it's been like to drive this car over that time period. I've driven it in the snow, I've driven it in really hot weather, I've done long road trips with the car, I've put 6 people in it at one point. I've really experienced this car to a great degree and wanted to share with you guys what that's been like. So without further ado, here is a review of living with a 2016 Mercedes S-Class. First off, the new S-Class is a brilliant platform. They killed it from the exterior to the interior to the overall driving experience, but you probably know that from other reviews. What I love most about it is how easy and how relaxing it is to drive. It doesn't matter if it's pouring rain or it's incredibly hot out or it's negative 20 degrees. It feels the same inside the S-Class. You can drive it with such little effort. The steering wheel is very light, but if you want to have a little bit more of a sporty vibe, you can put it in sport mode. There's a bump that's in my neighborhood that always is really intense. We went over it right there and you barely felt it. In any other car I've been through, it's absolutely jolting to all of the passengers. I've had many people in this car before, and the space is really incredible, especially in the back. You can fit 3 full-size adults. I had 3 friends, all of which were about 6'2", 250 pounds. And while it was a little bit snug, those are 3 large adults and they all fit in the back. In terms of the front space, it's very airy and you've got plenty of legroom and headroom, of course. One thing I really like is if somebody new is entering your car, maybe the seating position isn't quite right, you can actually control the passenger seat from the driver's seat setting. People really enjoy the massage settings. I really wish it was a little bit more intense. I think something that it's probably due to the durability of the seats that they can't have too intense of a massage, but I wish it was a little bit harder. But there's many different settings, from hot stone massage that gives you a little bit of heated seat action to activating massage, classic massage, and stuff of that nature. It's got cooled and heated seats. You can use those both at the same time along with getting a massage, so that's pretty crazy. In terms of road trips, I drove this car all the way to Chicago. It's about a 5-hour drive, not that far, in one drive, and then I drove back the following day. Now that was after, while I was in Chicago, I drove about 20 different cars at a Midwestern Automotive Media Conference. So it was a long day of hard work, and then I got to come back in this car, and normally you'd probably resent driving that far. It's really just freeway driving. It's not exciting back roads or anything like that. But with the S-Class, it really kind of eliminates all of the negative experiences you have associated with. Right now, it's rush hour. I'm sitting in bumper-to-bumper traffic, but I don't really care. You've got the AC that is very nice at cooling down the cabin very fast. There's even an air purifier, an ionizer. You've even got different perfume settings so you can change the atmosphere of the car. One of the biggest things that contributes to the ease of driving experience is Distronic Plus. Now, some people would say, a car that has a slightly autonomous setting to it, are you really going to use it, or is it just a gimmick to tell people that the S-Class can drive itself on the freeway? Now sure, it's a great marketing tool. Tesla is obviously using it as well. However, it actually is really helpful, and the thing I love most about it is its gentle guiding of the steering wheel when on the highway that just makes it a little bit easier to drive the car. You put on Distronic Plus, it's reading the lines to the left and right of you, as well as cars in front of you in order to slow yourself down. It can come to a complete stop if you happen to not pay attention for a little bit and there's traffic up ahead. It can actually stop you entirely. But you can only do it for 10 seconds at a time if your hands are off the wheel. Of course, you can do it for much longer if you put your hands back on the wheel. That's due to government regulations, and it's really kind of a safety feature, so you don't end up climbing into the back of your car pretending it's autonomous and getting into an accident. Right now, I'm at a stop at a light. One of the features I love about this car, took a little bit to figure it out actually, is if you press the brake pedal really hard, it activates a hold feature. Now I've taken my foot off the brake, yet it's holding the car from going forward. And then when you press the gas, it moves the car forward. But instead of having to switch it into park or press your foot on the gas the whole time. I know it sounds like a lot of these things are just for lazy drivers. And maybe in part it is, but these things that aid the driving experience to make it easier, and yes, I guess allow you to be more lazy, just makes you happier when you're driving this car. This isn't a sports car, so it's not supposed to be an involving driving experience. It's really about being in your own world inside the S-Class. And part of that is the brilliant speaker system. My car only has the base Burmeister system, which still is very, very good. Everyone is impressed with how crisp the treble is and how great the bass sounds. Of course, you can upgrade to the high-end audio system, which I believe is 1540 watts, comes with rotating tweeters and a crazy speaker up here, and that is a next level of brilliant auditory experience. But even the base model speaker system is absolutely brilliant. Speaking of base model, there is one thing that I wish I had done differently with this car. I got this S-Class basically off the showroom. I did not order the car, and I kind of wish I did. I rushed into this in the sense that I really needed a winter car. My other car was not suitable for driving in the snow, and I needed something that I could reliably get from point A to point B without being nervous to drive it in a snowy environment. This car performs incredibly well in the snow. It's got 4MATIC, of course, which means it is all-wheel drive, and with all-season tires, it just absolutely powers through the snow better than any car I've driven. And what's really fun is if you do turn the traction control off, you still have a little bit of traction. So if you like donuts, you can actually do donuts at higher speed because you have that slight amount of traction to get yourself going, and then you can drift a four-door luxury sedan, which is a little bit unorthodox, but hey, that's part of the fun, right? So some things I wish I would have done. If I ordered the car, I would have gotten different wheels. I like the 20-inch wheels a lot more than the 19s that I have on this car. And another thing is, for about $1,500 to I believe $2,000, you could have upgraded the interior a lot. Now, all the other cars available in the country at the time that had this option were $20,000 more expensive, and I didn't want to spend that. But you can get the reclining and heated and cooled rear seats that also comes with a wraparound illuminating light back there for the ambient lighting. And I think it makes the car look a lot better and actually makes it look basically identical in the interior to a base model Mercedes Maybach. There's also some other trim options. I do really like this brown wood, but there are some options that make it a little bit more exciting. One of the biggest shocks I had with the S-Class is actually how nice it is to drive. You wouldn't expect in a car that's plentiful in New York City, where business executives are being driven around in the back, relaxing on their way to work in hectic New York, that it would actually be really fun to drive. I actually prefer the driving dynamics of the S550 to the BMW 7 Series, which is very unique because BMW is typically more about driver involvement. When you put it in sport mode, and you put the suspension in sport mode, it firms up quite a bit. This has air suspension, which rides very well over bumps. Interestingly, with the 4MATIC, you can't get the upgraded air suspension active body control that actually self-levels so you don't have any body roll, but it handles plenty well, and it feels more nimble than a 4,500-pound, over 200-inch long sedan would allude to. You've also got a very, very nice twin-turbo V8 engine that makes the car go to 60 in the mid-4-second range. I took this to the drag strip, funny enough, and was able to do the quarter mile in 13 seconds flat, which is pretty impressive, considering speed really is not a single part of what the S-Class is all about. But in order to compete in the level of six-figure sedans, of course, that was something that was necessary. I love how practical the S550 is. A lot of people use it to get chauffeured in the back, but in terms of using it as a daily driver, which I do, there's some things that are really great about it. One, never having to worry about comfortably carrying 5 people. Super easy. The legroom in the back is ridiculous. If somebody who's tall ever gets in the car, they are stunned that it's likely the largest cabin they've ever been in. The trunk space is enormous. You've also got this cool fold-out box that can push down and you can store groceries and stuff like that without them rattling away. I've also used this car as a camera car. Obviously, that's not going to be the typical use of somebody purchasing or leasing an S-Class, but I can put my slider in the back of the car, and because the suspension is so smooth, it rides really well and gets some really, really smooth shots, which I find to be super. More on practicality. With the all-wheel drive system, it works extremely well, and it's really reliable. In 7,700 miles, there hasn't been a single hiccup. I'm almost afraid to say that because I feel like now the car is going to break during the middle of this video. But honestly, not a single thing has gone wrong. I think I'm due for maintenance, a service somewhat soon, but man, it has been a flawless experience, especially every other car other than this I've bought used. So there can be some awesome deals to be found in terms of leveraging depreciation. But of course, if cars are out of warranty, they can break, so on and so forth with higher mileage. Not a single thing has gone wrong, and I really, really appreciate that. I know that anytime I get in this car, it's going to work. It's going to be a pleasurable experience driving it, and that's what I think makes the S-Class so great. Another thing, some cars age poorly. Maybe there's rattles and squeaks after miles. When you get the car at first and you test drive it, everything seems great, but then after time, stuff starts to get loose. None of that has happened whatsoever. This is the quietest in-cabin experience that I have personally experienced. I mean, I drove the Maybach and that was a little quieter, but there is nothing that rattles and squeaks in this car whatsoever. If something is, it's the change that you have in the compartment here. That brings me to another thing. The storage compartments are actually very nice in this. Namely, I really like the center console and how you can open it from both directions. So if I want to open it, I can click this way. Some really good German engineering involved in this. And if the passenger wants to open it, they've got a button on the other side. You've got USB, all right, shut, damn it. I think it's because I've got my USB charger. Yeah, that's exactly what it is. Sticking out, charging my iPhone right now that it's not shutting. Oh, this is just embarrassing. This is just really fun. God damn it, you fucking shut. I'm filming a video. There we go, S-Class. Thank you very much. You've of course got USB inputs to charge your phone. Bluetooth actually connects really quickly and works very well. Satellite radio has excellent reception in the car. Some other cars suffer with that actually, and it kind of defeats the point of the radio. But that comes through clear. I listen to satellite radio all the time, and through the speaker system, it sounds almost like CD quality. I know some audiophiles probably want to hang me for saying that, but it truly is great for somebody who is not crazy about sound quality. You've also got a 12-volt outlet in the back. One thing I don't really like about it is it has a shelf, kind of a lip to it. So for me, I'd like to be able to charge camera batteries, but because of the way it's designed, I pretty much have to use an extension cord to be able to access it. You could plug in your laptop or, well, actually not really your laptop because it's only 2 prongs, so you'd have to get an adapter for that. But you could certainly plug in an iPhone and anything else that uses 2 prongs. So that's nice as well. Vanity mirrors in the back, some passengers have liked that. The sunshades, you can basically make this a very airy experience where you're really exposed to the elements outside. You can put these sunshades all the way back, and I've got sunshades on the side as well that I can control from the back, and even actually the passengers in back can control them. And you've got a huge moonroof that I don't use too often, but you can open that up and expose yourself to the elements. And it's actually still, hopefully it comes across on the camera well, it's still pretty quiet in here, although I'm not going all that fast. But when you close everything up, it becomes incredibly isolated from the world around you. Even if it's raining, you barely hear the raindrops hit your car. You don't hear honking and city noises. I mean, of course you hear it faintly, but not in a way that really takes away from the experience. I love when I get in this car, I actually feel happy. You know, sports cars, you can feel happy from the rumbling of the engine or the involvement or the performance, but there's nothing worse than being in a sports car in bumper-to-bumper traffic. It makes you want to tear your hair out. But in this car, sitting in traffic actually isn't all that bad. Other things I love about the S550, the dual 12.3-inch screens are phenomenal. They're customizable. You can have so many different screen settings on. I love it very much. So crystal clear. When people hop in the car for the first time, they're usually blown away first and foremost by the screens. Also, when it's dark out, the ambient lighting really adds to the ambiance inside the car. Furthermore, with the screens, the backup camera is the best backup camera system I've ever experienced. I love it. It's got an aerial view that basically has 360 around the car. The feedback in terms of audio is very awesome, letting you know where there are objects behind and in front of the car. You can also change the camera angle settings if you're trying to make sure that when you're parallel parking, you don't curb your wheels. That's very nice. You can rotate it in front of you or behind you. Whenever I actually pull into a curb, not pull into a curb, but pull into a parking spot that has a tall curb, usually I'm worried about hitting the front end of my car into something like that. Well, you can activate the camera system by clicking a button to the left of the steering wheel. I actually do that even when I'm not backing up, so I can see how close I need to get to the little stopper in the front of the parking spot without jamming the front end of the car in it. As far as the future with this car, there are some upgrades that can potentially be done. I'm not sure if I'm going to mess with them because it will void the warranty of the car, and something I like is the reassurance that if something goes wrong, it will be covered. Although this has been so reliable that it hasn't used anything warranty related, but I know the second you start modifying stuff, that changes everything immensely. But there are tunes you can do through Rentec and a couple other companies that bump the power of this above 600 horsepower, and it actually performs better than an S63 AMG for something like $2,500, which in the scheme of things, when you think of how much more an S63 costs than this car, of course you don't get the sound and some of the interior amenities of that car, but you can make this basically an ultimate sleeper that can run low 12s in the quarter mile and also haul people in luxury. Personally, I might think about upgrading the wheels on this car. Vossen CVTs look very excellent, especially in 20 or 21 inch as opposed to the 19s here. Another thing that's great about the S550 is all these things that normally would seem like cheap gimmicks, marketing gimmicks, like I talked about Distronic Plus, actually are useful. So parallel parking, this car actually can parallel park itself really well once you understand how the system works. There was definitely a period of time where I hated it and didn't think it worked, but once you figured out and once you realized how big a space needed to be, this can parallel park itself really, really well without curbing the wheels, which is nice. My fuel economy overall, 15.8 miles per gallon. That is not very good at all. You have to remember though that it is a biturbo V8 and it's a huge vehicle, and it's all-wheel drive as well. And my average speed has been 24 miles an hour, so clearly I've done a lot of city driving. Obviously on the highway it gets much better than that. You can get over 20 miles per gallon, but this is definitely not going to be a fuel-efficient car whatsoever. In terms of the future replacements for the S-Class, I've loved this so much, it's kind of hard to see myself driving anything other than the S550. I don't want to upgrade to the Maybach. I think for what I use this car for, there's too much involved in the rear seat experience that I would never get to use as someone who's daily driving the car. It would just be kind of an absurd expenditure in order to get that. It's also a bigger vehicle, so it doesn't handle quite as well. But of course, I mean, if I could trade this for a Maybach for free, of course I would do that in a heartbeat. Cool things coming out, S550 Maybach, which actually is the same size as this, just has some luxurious amenities, and it's priced pretty well. I think it starts at $155,000, whereas the Maybach starts at $185-ish. So it definitely is a little bit lower, but you don't have that V12, and it's not extended wheelbase. You don't need the extended wheelbase, but if you're being chauffeured and you have endless money, of course you could do something like that. Cars that I've driven that I prefer to this, Rolls-Royce Ghost, Rolls-Royce Wraith, but these are cars that cost so much more. I mean, if you talk about lease prices on this with $10,000 down, it's $1,450 a month. On a Wraith, I did some negotiating. I went in to look at a Wraith myself, determined it was pretty ridiculous how much the Wraith actually costs. Looked like there was a fan there. That was fun. With $75,000 down on a lease, not purchasing. In California, when I went and experienced the Wraith, they actually said that at that dealership, super nice guys, every single person that year had leased a Rolls-Royce. They hadn't bought it. So that's interesting to note. It's different in Michigan, I believe. Almost none of them were leased. Different ways of getting the car. But with $75,000 down, it was $3,500 a month. So it's more than twice as much, and the down payment's 7.5 times as much. So, I mean, that's just a ridiculous new level. And there's something about the S-Class, about the design. It's so modern. Bentley and Rolls-Royce, they're kind of more classic. The material choices and the craftsmanship are better. They're all handmade. They take longer, and the materials are more exotic. But in terms of the design language, I actually like the interior of the S550 or a Maybach more than either of those cars. They just have the panache and the exterior that basically says, F you, this is the most luxurious car ever, and there is an appeal of the name Rolls-Royce. But to say an S550 isn't a fantastic car to drive, obviously, doesn't make any sense. We got an RS5 here. Gave him a thumbs up. He didn't respond at all. Interesting. I'm on North Campus now of the engineering school. I am a full-time mechanical engineering student at the University of Michigan. This is my last semester. Oh man, I've had a great time, but I am excited to be done. This whole time, this car, I mean, obviously I record YouTube videos all the time. This is my favorite car to film videos in because the road noise is basically zero. And it literally feels like I'm in a room or a recording studio talking into this microphone. Everything is filtered out, as opposed to my other cars, it is not the case whatsoever. So there you have it. This might be my favorite car that I've ever owned. It's been a flawless experience with the S-Class. Would I do it again? 100%. I really have no regrets other than a couple upgrades that I wish I would have done from the get-go, but that would have required me ordering the car, waiting months, and I really didn't have the time to spare then because I did need a winter car. If you're looking at the S-Class versus the A8L and the BMW, I would vote for the S-Class. I think if you're really into technology, you can get more for your money with the BMW. But in terms of overall luxury and driving experience and how Mercedes treats their customers, I think that the S-Class comes out on top. Well, this probably went a lot longer than I expected, but I really hope you did enjoy this video talking about my overall experience with the vehicle. Now this reminded me one more thing as it's starting to get darker. We have active high beams when you put those on that automatically dim if it senses that there are car lights coming at you, and they automatically turn back on when cars go away. Also, it's somehow able to sense signs, and it can tilt the high beams upwards to illuminate road signs on the freeway so you know when to get off at your next exit. Just little things like that that are unbelievable. That they can think of that. And also, I love the steering wheel design. It feels so good in your hand. The wood trim feels great, doesn't get greasy at all, and the leather wrapped steering wheel is also nice. The paddles, they're not very responsive, but they've got a nice feel to them. In terms of the air conditioning, they're a little bit cheap feeling actually, but I do like that you can turn the vents down by this push button here. You can turn that counterclockwise, it shuts it off, clockwise turns it back on. You've got a digital clock. Everything is laid out very well. The feel of pressing any of the buttons in the car, for the most part, is top-notch. There's leather everywhere. Oh, I could talk for days about this car, but I'm not going to because you're probably bored out of your mind already. I hope you enjoyed this rather long explanation of my experience with the S-Class. If you liked it, please let me know. I can do it with other cars that I've had long experience with, whether it's ones that I've owned or ones that I've driven a lot with Eddie that we could do together. Hope you enjoyed this video. Like always, please browse our channel and subscribe. I'll look forward to seeing you next video.